You became tired long before your body did. You wake up on a Sunday morning with a heavy head, but the real weight is not in your temples. It is in your chest. It is a quiet, hollow echo that tells you something vital is missing. Society has normalized the act of pouring a liquid into a glass to wash away the stress of the week, to celebrate, to mourn, to simply exist around others, but nobody talks about the invisible toll it takes on the deepest parts of who you are. You consume it to feel alive, yet it quietly strips away your life force. You drink to forget your immediate problems, only to wake up disconnected from your own core identity. This is not about judgment or prohibition. This is about clarity. It is about understanding the mechanics of a substance that has been perfectly marketed to keep you docile, fragmented, and distant from your highest potential. Once you see the hidden reality behind the glass, you will never look at it the same way again. The ancient roots of this substance tell a story that modern marketing desperately hides. In medieval times, the word itself referred to a fine powder used to extract the essence of a material. It was an agent of separation. When you consume it, that same separation happens within you. It is not just your motor skills that become delayed, it is your fundamental awareness. You are chemically uncoupling your mind from your deepest intuition, silencing the inner voice that guides your life. Think about the mornings after a long night out. You stare in the mirror and struggle to recognize the person looking back. That is not just physical exhaustion, it is the cost of vacating your own mind. When your awareness leaves the driver's seat, impulses and repressed shadows take the wheel. You say things you do not mean, act in ways you later regret, and spend the next 3 days apologizing for a version of yourself that you do not even respect. To reclaim your authority, you must stop outsourcing your emotional regulation to a chemical solvent. True clarity requires feeling the friction of life and standing firm within it. When you face your stress, your boredom, and your social anxiety with a sober mind, you build unbreakable internal resilience. You stop running. You stand your ground, fully intact, and you slowly rebuild the bridge between your actions and your true self. The journey continues as we examine the energy you unknowingly trade away. Everything you do either builds your momentum or drains it. Your mental state operates on a specific frequency, fueled by discipline, focus, and clear intentions. When you introduce a depressant into your system, you are artificially lowering your baseline reality. You are taking a mind capable of deep, sustained creation and forcing it to operate in a dense, sluggish fog. It is a self-inflicted handicap in a world that already demands everything you have to give. The exhaustion you feel days later is the evidence of this energetic robbery. You borrowed a few hours of artificial confidence or relaxation, and the interest rate is paid with your ambition. Your aura of discipline cracks. The goals you cared deeply about on Friday afternoon suddenly feel overwhelming by Sunday morning. You lose the sharp edge that separates the driven from the drifting, allowing apathy to settle into the spaces where your drive used to live. You must protect your mental environment as if your future depends on it, because it does. Elevating your baseline requires ruthless elimination of what drags you down. Replace the habit of numbing with the habit of building. Channel that same Friday evening energy into reading, physical training, or simply sitting in silence to process your week. A clear mind is a weapon. Keep it sharp and prepare to understand the dangerous illusion of relief. We are told that taking a drink is the ultimate way to unwind. It is the culturally accepted reward for surviving a hard day. But true relaxation is the restoration of your systems, while this substance is an active disruption. It does not solve the anxiety, it merely hits the pause button on your capacity to care about it. The problems wait patiently for the chemical curtain to lift, often returning with twice the intensity and finding you with half the strength. This cycle creates a quiet desperation. You endure a life or a job you dislike all week, just to buy a temporary escape on the weekend. This is a trap that keeps millions of people compliant and stuck. Instead of facing the reality that their life needs a radical overhaul, they numb the dissatisfaction. The pain of stagnation is dulled, just enough to keep them from taking the massive, frightening action required to actually change their circumstances. Stop using a chemical bandage on a life that requires surgery. If your reality is so stressful that you need an escape hatch every 5 days, the solution is not to numb the stress. The solution is to redesign your life. Lean into the discomfort of change. Let the raw, unmedicated frustration fuel your discipline to build something better. True relief comes from conquering your reality, not fleeing from it. Now consider the cost to your very identity. Consistency is the foundation of self-respect. You build trust with yourself by acting in alignment with your core values day after day. But intoxication introduces a wild card into your behavior. It fractures your identity, creating a divided self. There is the sober you, who has goals, standards, and morals. And there is the intoxicated you, who routinely compromises those exact standards for cheap thrills and momentary validation. Living with this split identity breeds a deep, unspoken shame. You cannot truly respect a man or woman who is liable to abandon their principles at the bottom of a glass. Those memory gaps and flashes of out-of-character behavior are not funny stories. They are fractures in your integrity. When you cannot trust your own actions, your confidence erodes. You walk through life with a subtle hesitation, knowing that an unreliable version of yourself is always waiting in the shadows. Integration is the only path to authentic power. You must become one indivisible person, whether it is Tuesday morning or Saturday night. This demands the courage to socialize, celebrate, and exist without a chemical mask. When you realize you do not need an alter ego to be interesting or brave, your self-esteem becomes unbreakable. You own every word and every action. With this unified front, we turn to the unseen forces you invite in when your guard is down. Your awareness is a shield. It filters out destructive influences and keeps you anchored in your purpose. When you willingly diminish that awareness, you are dropping your defenses in a world full of chaotic variables. You become highly suggestible, easily swayed by the crowd, and prone to reckless decisions. You are handing the keys of your life over to the environment, allowing lower-tier situations and people to dictate your trajectory. Notice how environments centered around heavy drinking are rarely hubs of growth, wisdom, or elevation. They are often breeding grounds for conflict, wasted time, and shallow connections. By lowering your internal frequency, you match the frequency of the chaos around you. You attract situations that a clear, disciplined mind would have easily avoided. You become a magnet for drama, misunderstanding, and the heavy residue of people who are also running from themselves. Guarding your mind is your highest responsibility. When you walk into any room, you should be the one influencing the environment, not the one being dragged down by it. Staying clear-headed allows you to read the room, protect your peace, and exit situations the moment they no longer serve your growth. You become an observer rather than a victim of circumstance. Master your mind, and you master your reality. You borrow courage when you drink to speak, to approach, to feel larger than your reality. Society has convinced you that this liquid is a necessary key to unlock your charisma. But confidence cannot be poured from a bottle. It can only be rented. You are chemically suppressing your natural inhibitions, bypassing the necessary internal work required to truly stand tall in a room. It is a fraudulent strength that vanishes the moment the substance leaves your bloodstream. The morning after, the rented courage is repossessed, and the debt is collected. You are left with a hollow anxiety, a quiet realization that you did not actually overcome your insecurities. The real you remains hesitant and unsure, watching from the sidelines while an intoxicated imposter wears your face. You spend years relying on this crutch, never developing the actual psychological muscle needed to hold your own under pressure. Your true self slowly withers in the shadow of this fake persona. Real power is constructed in the uncomfortable silence of sobriety. It is built by walking into a crowded room and feeling the friction of your own anxiety, yet choosing to stand firm anyway. Earn your confidence through competence and exposure, not through a chemical shortcut. When you learn to command your presence without an altering substance, your self-respect becomes permanent. You transform from a man who needs a shield into a man who is the shield. They call it a social lubricant, a tool to bridge the gap between strangers and ease the friction of human interaction. In reality, it often serves to numb the anxiety of not having anything of substance to say. You gather in loud rooms, consuming a depressant that lowers your frequency, mistaking shared intoxication for genuine human connection. It creates an illusion of brotherhood, masking the fact that without the glass in your hand, you might have nothing in common with the people beside you. This illusion has a devastating long-term cost. You invest years of your life into relationships that only exist within the boundaries of a bar or a weekend escape. Deep, transformative conversations are replaced by superficial noise and shared amnesia. When a crisis hits your life, these chemically bound alliances evaporate. You look around and realize you're surrounded by drinking partners, not allies, leaving you profoundly isolated when you need solid ground the most. A bond that requires a substance to survive is not a bond at all. It is a shared distraction. Demand more from your inner circle. Seek out individuals who challenge your mind, elevate your standards, and require your sharpest, most sober presence. True brotherhood is forged in clarity, mutual respect, and shared struggle. Strip away the artificial layers of socializing and dare to build connections that can withstand the harsh light of reality. Life is designed to provide friction. Dissatisfaction, stress, and boredom are natural signals demanding that you evolve and change your environment. But a drink short-circuits this essential mechanism. It creates an artificial comfort zone, making a stagnant life suddenly feel tolerable. You use it to instantly rewrite your emotional state, turning a bleak Friday evening into a temporary victory while the fundamental issues of your life remain completely untouched. This artificial comfort is a quiet killer of ambition. Months turn into years, and the book remains unwritten, the business unstarted, the body unbuilt. You stop striving because you have found a way to feel peace without making progress. The heavy, low-frequency energy of the substance anchors you to mediocrity. You slowly accept a life that is far beneath your potential, sedated by the very ritual you thought was a reward for your hard work. Embrace the holy fire of dissatisfaction. Allow the lack of comfort to drive you toward massive action. If your reality is unfulfilling, do not sedate the feeling, use it as the fuel to tear down your current life and build something magnificent. Let the raw, unmedicated frustration push you into the gym, into your work, into absolute mastery. Build a life so deeply aligned with your purpose that you never feel the urge to escape it. Pain, grief, and anger are not enemies, they are messengers. They carry vital data about your boundaries, your losses, and your internal compass. When you drown these emotions in alcohol, you are executing the messenger before the delivery is complete. You bypass the difficult but necessary process of emotional digestion. You are chemically repressing dense energies, storing them deep within your body and mind, instead of allowing them to pass through and teach you. Over time, this constant evasion causes your emotional immune system to atrophy. Because you never sit with discomfort, you lose the capacity to handle the inevitable tragedies of human existence. A minor inconvenience or a sudden loss shatters your composure. You become fragile, constantly reaching for the bottle at the first sign of emotional pressure. The unresolved shadows grow heavier, creating that lingering sense of emptiness and anxiety that haunts your quiet moments. True resilience requires you to face the brutal reality of your own emotions, feel the pain, sit with the heavy silence, process the grief without a chemical buffer. A truly powerful mind is forged in the fire of raw reality, not in the cooling fluid of avoidance. When you prove to yourself that you can endure the darkest storms of your mind without breaking, you develop an unbreakable, quiet sovereignty that nothing in this world can shake. The damage is rarely a sudden, catastrophic explosion. It is a slow, silent erosion of your life force. It is the compound interest of apathy. The depressant nature of the substance slowly lowers your energetic baseline, making you subtly indifferent to the higher calling of your life. You lose the sharp, aggressive edge that separates the driven from the drifting. The grand vision you once had for your future slowly fades into a fog of compromises and missed weekends. You stop failing spectacularly and start failing invisibly. You accept the extra weight, the stagnant career, and the mediocre relationships because your capacity to care has been chemically diluted. The aura of discipline that once protected you cracks, leaving you vulnerable to low-tier habits and chaotic environments. You look back a decade later, not entirely destroyed, but mourning the ghost of the powerful, focused man you were supposed to become. Wake up and reclaim your edge. The energy you are pouring down the drain every weekend is the exact fuel required to conquer your reality and build an empire. Cut the anchor of apathy and watch how rapidly your frequency rises. When you eliminate the static, your true vision returns with terrifying clarity. Protect your drive, guard your energy, and step back into the arena with the absolute focus of a sovereign mind. When the fog finally lifts, the landscape of your life is exposed. You can no longer hide behind the blurred edges of intoxication. The silence of a clear mind forces you to confront the exact things you have been trying to escape. The unfulfilling job, the broken relationships, the quiet desperation. This is not a punishment, it is the ultimate psychological mirror. For years, you have used a chemical veil to make an unacceptable reality feel tolerable. But the cost of this avoidance is massive. The problems did not disappear, they simply mutated in the dark. The longer you avoided the raw truth, the heavier the burden became, creating a deep energetic debt that drained your daily vitality and left your soul feeling hollow. You lived as a passenger in your own existence. Facing this raw reality is the initiation into absolute maturity. You must look at the wreckage of your own choices without flinching. Let the discomfort sharpen your resolve. When you strip away the illusions, you finally see the exact coordinates of where you are. From this point of brutal honesty, you can begin the slow, deliberate work of constructing a life you never want to run away from. Heavy consumption does more than damage the physical body. It shatters the internal cohesion of your identity. You experience a fragmentation of the self, where the conscious mind and the deeper intuition no longer communicate. You are left feeling unanchored, drifting through your days with a persistent sense of emptiness as if a vital piece of you has been misplaced in the fog. This disconnect breeds profound self-doubt. When you repeatedly ignore your inner voice in favor of a chemical escape, that voice eventually stops speaking. You lose access to your own internal compass. Decisions become agonizing. You start looking outward for validation and direction, desperately seeking answers from a chaotic world, because the bridge to your own higher consciousness has been burned down. The reconstruction of this bridge requires relentless, sober consistency. You must prove to yourself that you are safe in your own mind. By aligning your actions with your deepest values every single day, you lay the bricks of a new foundation. The inner voice will return, faint at first, then undeniable. Reclaim your sovereignty by becoming a man whose words, thoughts, and actions are flawlessly integrated. Society treats sobriety as a punishment, a tragic consequence for those who lost control. This is a deliberate manipulation. True, intentional sobriety is an offensive weapon. It is the ultimate rebellion against a culture designed to keep you numb, passive, and distracted. Choosing radical clarity is a declaration of war against mediocrity and an absolute commitment to experiencing the full weight of your existence. The average man surrenders his weekend, his focus, and his energetic frequency for momentary validation. He is trapped in a loop of recovery, spending half his week repairing the damage of his own leisure. This cycle steals his ambition and lowers his vibrational baseline, making him highly susceptible to negative influences, chaotic environments, and the heavy burden of unrealized potential. Step entirely out of the loop. When you commit to a clear mind, your timeline accelerates. The energy previously wasted on chemical recovery is instantly transmuted into raw momentum. You begin to operate at a frequency that the distracted masses cannot comprehend. Radical sobriety is not about giving something up. It is about taking everything back. It is the uncompromising pursuit of your ultimate power. You have been taught to fear silence. The modern world profits from your overstimulation, pushing you to drown out quiet moments with screens, noise, and substances. But true power is generated in absolute stillness. When you remove the artificial noise, you create the necessary space to process the heavy, dense emotions that you have been storing in your physical and energetic body for years. By constantly running from silence, you accumulate a massive backlog of unexamined trauma, anxiety, and frustration. This emotional hoarding weakens your aura, leaving you fragile and reactive to the slightest external pressure. You snap at your family, you lose your temper over trivial matters, and you seek chemical oblivion because the volume of your unresolved internal chaos has become deafening. Master the art of sitting quietly in a room alone. Face the discomfort of your own company without reaching for a distraction. Let the thoughts surface, acknowledge them, and let them pass. This deliberate practice of stillness cleanses your mental environment and restores the flow of your natural energy. In this profound silence, you forge an unshakable calmness that no external storm can penetrate. Purification must occur on both the physical and the subtle levels. To truly reset a mind clouded by years of subtle intoxication, you must deny the body its usual comforts. Fasting is the ancient technology of mental reset. By temporarily withdrawing food and heavy stimuli, you force the body to consume its own toxins, rapidly clearing the dense fog that has settled over your cognitive and energetic centers. A body constantly burdened by processing toxins and heavy meals is a sluggish vessel. It drags your consciousness down into a low-frequency state of perpetual lethargy. This heavy physical state makes discipline feel impossible. Your intuition is blocked, your focus is shattered, and you remain disconnected from your higher self, simply surviving from one fleeting hit of dopamine to the next. Implement strategic periods of physical emptiness to invite immense mental sharpness. A disciplined fast is a forceful declaration of dominance over your physical impulses. As the body lightens, the mind becomes razor sharp, and the energetic frequency of your being naturally elevates. You unlock a level of focus and pure awareness that allows you to operate with lethal precision in your daily life. The true measure of a man's freedom is found in the gap between a stimulus and his response. When you operate with a clear, sovereign mind, you possess the power to observe an urge without instantly acting upon it. Alcohol actively destroys this critical gap. It targets the very centers of your energetic body responsible for willpower and self-discipline, specifically weakening the solar plexus. You trade your profound internal command for the fleeting satisfaction of a base impulse. Without this command, you become a mere biological machine, reacting blindly to your environment. You say things you deeply regret because your filter for truth and communication has been severely distorted. A man who cannot control his impulses is a man who cannot be trusted with power, wealth, or profound relationships. By constantly giving in to the chemical urge, you train your subconscious to believe that you are weak, building a subtle but devastating lack of self-trust that bleeds into every area of your life. Reclaiming the gap requires the absolute refusal to negotiate with your lower self. The power of saying no and meaning it is the strongest armor you can build. When the urge arises, sit with it. Feel the physical sensation of the craving and watch it pass without surrendering your authority. Every time you deny a destructive impulse, you forge a new link in your chain of self-discipline. You transition from a reactive passenger to the absolute commander of your vessel. Your identity is not a given trait, it is a structure forged in the intense fire of your daily consistent choices. Every action is a vote for the type of man you are becoming. Intoxication introduces a chaotic variable that fractures this structure. When you drink to excess, you risk experiencing profound memory gaps, which are not merely neurological failures, but actual temporal tears in your energy field. You are literally disconnecting from your own existence. Living with this fractured identity breeds an inescapable quiet shame. You wake up with a lingering sense of emptiness, feeling as though a core part of your soul has been lost in the fog of the previous night. You cannot command respect from the world when you harbor a version of yourself that is out of control, unpredictable, and vulnerable to dark, dense influences. This division of the self makes it impossible to build a legacy, because half of your energy is spent repairing the damage done by the other half. The reintegration of your soul demands radical honesty. You must become a man who does not require a chemical mask to navigate existence. Speak words of power over your life, affirming that your body is a temple of pure energy, and that you are in perfect harmony with your true essence. Anchor these new beliefs through unyielding consistency. When your sober self and your social self become one indivisible entity, you become truly dangerous to the systems that seek to control you. Motivation is a cheap, fleeting emotion that abandons you the moment the work becomes difficult. Discipline, however, is a cold, calculated architecture you build to survive the storms of life. Alcohol acts as a wrecking ball to this carefully constructed framework. It disrupts the natural flow of your vital energy, blocking your capacity for deep focus and delaying your spiritual and professional evolution. It turns the sharp, hungry architect into a complacent observer. The destruction of your discipline is rarely a sudden event. It is a slow, methodical erosion. You excuse a missed workout, you delay a critical project, and you accept a lower standard of living because the depressant has artificially lowered your baseline frequency. The karma generated by these irresponsible, unconscious actions compounds over time, creating a heavy prison of stagnation. You slowly become comfortable in the ruins of your own potential. Rebuilding this architecture requires you to protect your energy with ruthless aggression. Reconnect with the physical world through grounding practices, walking with intention, and stabilizing your energetic field. Treat your daily habits as sacred rituals that cannot be compromised by social pressure or the desire to escape. When you remove the friction of the substance, your discipline naturally accelerates, building an unstoppable momentum that reshapes your entire reality. Your external reality is nothing more than a mirror reflecting your internal vibrational state. There is a universal law that dictates you will attract the exact frequency you project. When you routinely consume a substance that heavily drops your vibration, you inevitably pull your life into a lower, denser orbit. You're no longer navigating toward your highest purpose, you're sinking into the collective noise. Notice the undeniable shift in your surroundings. When you fall into patterns of heavy consumption, situations become increasingly chaotic, unnecessary conflicts arise, and your most vital relationships grow painfully unstable. This is not a string of bad luck. This is the direct result of resonant energy. By dulling your intuition and dropping your spiritual guard, you open the gates to low-tier environments and people who feed on drama, distraction, and mutual stagnation. Mastery over your life begins with absolute curation of your environment. You must brutally audit the spaces you enter and the people you allow into your inner circle. Change your environment deliberately, surrounding yourself with individuals and spaces that demand consciousness, growth, and absolute clarity. When you elevate your internal frequency through sobriety and focus, the chaotic elements will naturally repel from your life, leaving only what is true, strong, and aligned. Sovereignty is the highest state of human existence. It is the absolute, unquestionable ownership of your thoughts, your emotions, and your energetic field. The ultimate hidden cost of alcohol is not the physical hangover, but the voluntary surrender of this spiritual sovereignty. In moments of heavy intoxication, your higher guardians cannot intervene, leaving you entirely vulnerable to external destructive forces. You abdicate the throne of your own mind. A mind that requires sedation to handle reality is a mind in captivity. You have been sold a lie that numbing the pain is the same as healing it. But true healing is a fierce, active process of facing your shadows with your eyes wide open. As long as you rely on the glass to mediate your relationship with the world, you remain a slave to your own repressed emotions and the cultural programming designed to keep you weak, distracted, and easily manipulated. Take back the throne. The path of true power is a return to your deepest interior strength. Utilize the vital force you once dispersed to expand your perception and align completely with your ultimate purpose. A sovereign man stands firmly in the center of his reality, unmedicated, unapologetic, and completely awake. Forge a mind so sharp and a spirit so impenetrable that the desire to escape your own life simply ceases to exist. The journey through the hidden mechanisms of this substance reveals an undeniable, absolute truth. It is not merely a physical intoxicant, but a dense veil designed to sever the connection to your most powerful, authentic self. You have seen the profound cost it extracts, the stolen confidence, the fragmented identity, the lowering of your frequency, and the quiet surrender of your spiritual sovereignty. But understanding the trap is only the first step. The true test of your character is what you choose to do with this clarity. You possess the ultimate freedom to dictate what enters your body and what shapes your reality. But with that freedom comes the heavy responsibility of owning the consequences. The awakening we seek is not about hiding from the world or living in fear of a substance. It is about choosing elevation over stagnation. It is the bold decision to face the raw, unedited friction of your life and use it to forge an unbreakable spirit. You do not need to numb your existence, you need to master it. If this truth has pierced through the noise and resonated with the quiet, powerful core within you, the time for hesitation is over. Step out of the fog, reclaim your vital energy, restore your true essence, and begin the deliberate work of constructing a reality you never wish to escape. If you're ready to command your mind and build a life of uncompromising power, subscribe to this channel. Leave a like, share this transmission with a man who needs to hear it, and join the pursuit of absolute mastery. The tools are in your hands. Act accordingly.